seatbelt safety, like, that could be important to us?
Seatbelt safety. One is that two things happen when you don't wear a seatbelt. You will fly up and over the steering wheel, which puts you through the windshield and increases your chance of death by 25% if you exit the vehicle. One, you could get run over by the vehicle that's still moving. The second thing that can happen, you can go down and under the steering wheel, which is equally as dangerous because your two largest bones in your body are your femurs. And if you break those, you can lose a lot of blood very quickly. And then sometimes it's hard to determine that you're bleeding in your legs until they start swelling up, and by then sometimes it can be too late.
Like, does it change colors, like, or whatever?
Eventually, yeah, it's like a bruise. If somebody hits you, you don't really notice it until the next day you see where the blood was and it starts bruising. That's why it's difficult to determine how much you're bleeding at the time.
Do you know any myths that people say about seatbelts?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories that not wearing seatbelts have saved people's lives, but it doesn't mean that if they were wearing a seatbelt they would have been killed. They just know that they weren't wearing a seatbelt and they weren't killed, so that's how the statistics. But statistics have shown that wearing a seatbelt drastically increases your chance of survival. That's why it's became a state law in Missouri and many other states.
And you said earlier when we were talking to you at your station that your son doesn't let you leave the house without putting your seatbelt on.
Yeah, it's not leave the house. When we park in our driveway, I usually am behind my wife. So if she needs to go somewhere, I have to pull out 2 feet and pull in beside her. And my little girl is always with me, and she's like, "You gotta put your seatbelt on." I'm like, "We're going right there." So I put it on to appease her. But anytime we leave the house or anything, we always have my kids are really big supporters of wearing a seatbelt just because we beat it into their heads since a young age.
So, like, could it cause any, like, chest damage, like where the strap crosses your chest or whatever?
Sometimes there is bruising from a hard enough force, but without that strap there and the small amount of bruising you receive, you would have a greater amount of bruising and possibly crushed ribs and damage to your heart from striking the steering wheel.
So could it break any bones, like your ribs or whatever?
On occasions it can break your ribs, but that doesn't create a life threat. Sometimes the ribs can puncture your lungs, but you still have an airway and you still have 4 out of 5 lobes of your lungs.
Okay, and I have a question.
Yes.
Seatbelts, how do they affect the Newton's 3 laws of motion, like inertia and stuff like that?
Yep, because there's 3 impacts. The initial impact, then your body striking something, and then the internal organ striking that. But the seatbelt locks so fast that you don't have the momentum and the kinetic energy built up except for what's in the car. So when the car stops at, if you're doing 65 miles an hour and you hit a tree, you're still going to have those impacts. You're still going to have the initial impact of the tree with the car, and then your impact of the seatbelt. As opposed to you being thrown out of the windshield and into the tree, having that impact of your internal organs against the inside of your body is still not as bad as you impacting the tree and then that kinetic energy
like,
still going
So
through.
would that be like your action and reaction forces?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.